FaZe have announced they have benched Rain, but fear not, Rain fans, he's not retiring yet. He said he's going to play on in CS2. His journey is far from over, and he's interested in stepping into the IGL role, which is something very interesting that we will talk about later. And a lot of people assumed if he was leaving FaZe, he was probably retiring. So now we've got a lot of questions to answer. But firstly, can I just say, I don't want any comments about my hair, okay? I know I'm looking like a 12-year-old Justin Bieber right now. I know that's the cut I'm rocking. Like, oh my God, this one with the glass. That's literally what I look like right now. Like, okay, you know what? Let's move swiftly on from that. And by the way, subscribe to More Hawker, okay? It's a new channel. I want to hit 1K subs. Let's do it. And let's start by making sure we give Rain his props, okay? Because to me, this guy, he's not just a FaZe legend, but he is synonymous and he is the pioneer of international Counter-Strike teams. Because do you guys remember before it was FaZe? It was this Kinguin lineup, okay? You might not remember. This was over 10 years ago now. Rain was making plays like this.
27 seconds left. This is doable. Scream just has to hide, but he goes down to Neo. It's still a 2v4. If he just stays alive, he should have run into T-spawn and just waited for that bomb, and that would have been a big issue. But now it's Rain and Mikelele, 2v4 here, and Mikelele going to go down eventually. Neo to finish it off, and it doesn't look possible here. Rain gets 3 kills, though, and now 1 bullet left. The Patrick gets the quad kill.
Yeah, you all didn't know about Heaven. You all didn't know that Train used to have Heaven up there at the top. That's why we call it Hell. But that first shot, ooh, okay. And I want to say this because Rain was kind of forced into going to international Counter-Strike really early, because at this time period in 2015, a lot of these teams were just full national squads. Like, look at this, okay? Katowice 2015. Basically, every squad is just a national team. French team, Ukrainian team, Swedish team, Brazilian team, right? There were basically no international rosters at this time, right? And unfortunately for Rain, that meant he was stuck on LGB. He was stuck with the Norwegians. And you look at the stats, he was actually like the second highest rated player at this tournament. Okay, it's 3 maps at Katowice 2015, but still, it's pretty good from Rain. And you can see, unfortunately for him, his lineup at this time just wasn't that good. Like, they lost against Envy here, 16-8. He's got Jacob with him, sure. But then Zevez, Rubino, Polly. Like, Rubino went on to do something. Zevez and Polly, they stuck around, but these were never top players, right? So he was forced into going international pretty early. And I think we deserve to give him like his props for that, because the team that he initially came onto, that Kinguin FaZe team, at the time, there was a lot of discussion about, does an international team actually work? There was a lot of discussion like, is the communication going to be good enough with all these different cultures? Is their English going to be good enough? So Rain really did pioneer this and stuck with this for the longest time out of all these players, right? And so it led into also him coming in with plays like this when he finally did get onto the international team. This one, genuinely incredible. I want to show this.
Kyoshima is ruthless, taking down 3 players now. And it's just Rain left alive. He's going to find the quick kill onto Happy, but he's got Kyoshima to contend with.
I remember watching this, and that kill blew my mind at the time. Like, looking back now, I don't think that's crazy, but at the time, there were not many people that could get that kill.
A frag there coming in from Rain. He's going to be pushing into the bomb site. The bomb is on his back. He's got the smoke for cover. So he can make the
and this is the other thing Rain had, which allowed the longevity, right? He not only was oftentimes just an entry player and had really crisp headshot aim, but to stick around for this long, you've got to have the brain for the game. And here, faking the B site play with the util against Envy, who were incredibly good at the time.
To the bomb site. He does have some time as well. He's going to try to get the frag onto the flank.
And yeah, I'd say Kenny misplays it slightly by going a bit too early, but people are always going to make mistakes in 1v5, especially at the time.
The game sense from this man is unreal. There's still 2 more players to find, though. Rain, he's going to get another one. MPK goes down. He's created a one-on-one. He's got so much time to use as well.
And look at this, dude. Rain versus Apex in like 2015.
He's going to make his way back towards the middle position. And he's going to try to trick his opponent right now. Apex, though. Oh, my goodness.
And he catches him out. And the Rain reaction, dude. Look at his reaction.
Apex, though. Oh, my goodness. Gracious me, Rain is an...
Yeah, you know, yeah, just give me my props, team. Give me my props. Like, the guy just always oozed confidence, right? And I want to say, it's clear the impact he's had on people, because look at these comments, right? I love how he's so calm. The confidence just oozes out of him. Finally, this is 3 years ago. Someone left a comment. Finally, he won the major and he's an MVP. Like, this is genuinely the impact he had on people, right? People love Rain. That is clear. They're going back to this old clip to comment these things, right? That is so cool. And you take a look at his history and you can see why. Because look at this, okay? From 2014 all the way through, he probably peaked around 2017 time, I would say. Had a bit of a dip, and then just sticks around this solid level for a long, long time. A solid soldier, never really dipping into terrible ratings, always just a reliable piece of this team. But the numbers here don't tell the full story, because he's hovering around this 1 rating the entire time. But what Rain had is that ability to peak and step up in the biggest moments, right? Here's this longevity on FaZe, right? You see, that's the initial roster we were talking about. Look at the amount of players he played with, dude. Obviously, Carrigan for a long time. Nico, Guardian, Olaf, right? Yanko's on the list as a coach. We'll ignore that. coldzera. Like, he's basically played with everyone. Simple towards the end. Like, what an incredible run of players to play with. And by the way, also was back with Robam when he first joined. Basically, when he first joined. Crazy cool as his coach. But you see here, this is the most impressive part to me because his peak was clearly around this time, 2017. Number 4 player in the world, was an incredible, aggressive entry. Also, still always had that ability in the clutch if needed. A couple of MVPs at a few of the big tournaments. But it's not like he was winning like the crazy impressive tournaments necessarily at this time. And you were almost wondering like, oh, is he going to be one of those players who does really well but never wins the biggest events? He does a little bit worse in 2018, but he's still good. And then you think he's past his best because there were so many players that they had that little peak for a couple of years and then they just slowly tapered off. And a lot of those players don't really play now, right? There's only so long you can stay at the top. And when someone has a year like this, number 4 in 2017, normally you see them with like maybe a couple years in the top 20 in and around it, and then they taper off, right? And you think about it, like guys like, you know, coldzera, who had his peak, all these incredible players, Shocks, eventually over time they would slip away. I don't think any of them came back like Rain did to then become a major MVP when he is clearly past his peak as a star player, right? Then he goes on to win Cologne. He's the 13th best player in 2022. He wins the Grand Slam. And then he goes into CS2 at IEM Sydney and is the MVP of that event. That is genuinely unthinkable, unbelievable for a player who peaked so long ago to still be contributing and winning MVPs that long later. It's just insane. It really is, okay? And we can get into a few of the CS2 clips as well. There's this one tap, which everyone loves. That wasn't Brokey.
Rain hit that. Rain one-tapped him out of the air. Oh my.
Brokey collateral and the close.
Bro, what? Oh my god. Oh my god. Excuse me?
Just so good.
What?
So good. Like, he always had that headshot aim, man. He always had it. And, okay, this clip, I think, also, again, shows that clutch ability perfectly. Against Simple here.
He's losing health and hope. 1v3 demanded of Simple. He'd love the bomb, but he needs a frag first. And Carrigan lackadaisical around the corner. Could lead to a plant. Safe haven in the smoke on the default box. He's evaporated. Oh, come on! Twist unprepared. Rain has to save him. Good damage into the box. Simple, doing simple things. Looking to clutch up. He's reading Rain, and Rain, a veteran of this stage. He knows he's got him trapped, but such low HP, the margin for error on Simple. A bullet from Rain would do it. Harvard Knight guard wise to the trick. Simple, stubborn to clutch up for Na'Vi. Who blinks first? 10 seconds, he's on Simple, he has to plant. Rain is so wise to his tricks. Now he gets the sound, and he springs to action. And a missed shot. One bullet is all it will take from both of them. Closing this gap, Rain holding his nerve against the greatest to ever do it. On the grand final stage. Rain can stop this and shatter the dreams, or will Simple truly do simple things? He goes for the no-scope.
The intensity, the tension in that clutch, and yet Rain, I don't think anyone else plays it like that. Like, there are so few players that would play it like that, that would wait that long. And by the way, he makes Simple start looking between angles. He makes Simple scared because he knows he is just in full control of the situation. Like, that is the type of player that Rain was in the big moments. That is what Rain will be remembered for. In the big moments, in the big games, he was that guy, right? He was that guy. And again, to show it, like 2022, this year is incredible to me because FaZe start well. They win some events. Rain is doing his job as a solid player on the team. And then he steps it up to a 1.24 rating at Antwerp. This tournament was like one of the best stories you can imagine. For him to come out and become the MVP like this was insane. And then he just goes back to being normal until Cologne, where again he puts up a 1.16 rating. Like, this guy was just money in the big events, in the most important matches. So good. So good. Right? And obviously that Antwerp final against Na'Vi, if you don't remember this, and this is the other thing, Rain will always be remembered for his yard plays on Nuke, man. Seriously.
Back in the day, we thought it was impossible, and Rain believed. The longest standing member stands to receive Na'Vi.
What a menace here. He's sucked in again. He's taken the first fight and they're still coming his way. Rain's looking to do more damage.
He has a smoke, but he might just use his weapon. They're ready, but so is he! Rain! That is absolutely ludicrous!
He was always so good game sense-wise at this position, at switching up how he played yard, at understanding what he needed to do. He was always incredible there. I think that's the spot people will remember him for. I think people remember him for some of those big moments I was talking about. And as I said earlier, making Simple like scared and look both ways almost in that 1v1, like, it's hard to like talk about how hard that is to do, right? Like, the ability to pull that off and to back yourself to play the clock that long in that scenario, really impressive, right? And so rightfully so, the community has been so positive in their reaction to this. Everyone's saying, you know, one of the legendary runs. You just don't see players stick around on a team for this long. Like, the only one I can think of is Naf, who even comes close, right? Like, Naf on Liquid. But I don't even think he's had the highs of a Rain on FaZe, because FaZe have just always been there and have provided so many big moments, right? End of an era. Everyone, of course, coming in. I want to go to the bottom because Kenny saying, Hall of Fame contender. I'm with it. I'm with it. You know, I think we've got to wait to see his whole career, but definitely, absolutely a FaZe legend. Definitely in there. Now, okay. Let's talk about FaZe as a team. Was this the right move for them? You look at the stats throughout the year. Elige, obviously gone, 1.11 rating. Simple, obviously gone, 1.09 rating. Rain's down here on a 1.06, right? Frozen is their clear star. Brokey has come back into the lineup. He's been a little mixed, right? Jacob's come in. He's not really been great. Carrigan's stats are obviously pretty bad. Rain's stats ain't too bad, considering his positions. And you actually look at the last 3 months. Frozen, again, always consistent, great player to have. Like, without Frozen, this team would be done. Brokey, actually picking it up recently. I'm not sure I believe in this long term. We'll see. We'll see. He's always somewhat inconsistent just with his style. Jacob, And then Carrigan. Everyone's looking at this. And I'm not going to lie, 0.79 sounds so much worse than 0.8 something. You never see a 0.79, dude. You never see it hit the sevens. And then Rain was actually up to a 1.09. By the way, Elige's numbers are actually the best out of anyone in this run. But he clearly was clashing with the team. And so the awkward thing is for FaZe, I honestly believe if you wanted to have the best chance to win in the short term, I really do think that the best move probably would have been to bench Jacob and bring Twists in. And I actually think that could have worked. Because you would have then Frozen and Twists as your 2-star riflers, who I think are both quite versatile in the way they can play. They can play aggressive sometimes. They can kind of do a bit of everything. Like Frozen, normally you think of him as maybe a bit more of a late round player, but he's willing to go aggressive sometimes when needed, and he's always had that in him. I think Twist can be kind of similar. And I think for Twists, it makes a lot of sense to come back to FaZe because he knows that he's done a lot of great work with Carrigan before, and I think he just believes that Carrigan can get the most out of him, and this team is clearly crying out for a second-star rifler. But I think realistically, Jacob has kind of been put in like better positions than Rain has, if you just look at the spots. And I know he's new, and I know that FaZe want a refresher for their just team in general. They want a younger player. They want someone to come in and offer a bit of fire and offer a bit of that individual ability. But Jacob hasn't really been that. And I kind of think if you just had Rain in as the supportive player, putting up good numbers, it could still work, right? Now, the other thing people are saying is if Rain is willing to switch to IGL and Carrigan's putting up these numbers, do you consider getting rid of Carrigan? The problem for me with that is a couple of things. Firstly, the big problem is we all know that when Carrigan retires, he probably wants to become a coach. And it just feels like you would be so silly to give up the opportunity to have Carrigan as the coach of your team. Because with everything he's done, you've got to think that you want to give that a try if you're FaZe, right? And I get that it really hurts to lose Rain. But I think the other point is, if Rain were to continue to not always like have the biggest performances in the early stages of tournaments, that's when this team would really struggle. Because I do think both Rain and Carrigan are the sorts of players that do their best work in big arena games, in the big tournaments, right? They're both guys that have been around for so long that, let's be real, they don't really get out of bed for like a normal game or a normal tournament. And I kind of feel like having two players like that on your team, I've always felt it's going to cause some issues. Like, it's not going to be the best. And yeah, Rain had picked it up recently, but I kind of wonder if part of that is just kind of knowing that he's probably going to be gone from the team soon. Like, maybe he had a feeling for this ahead of time, and maybe he was starting to put in a bit more effort because of that. Either way, I still think in the group stages of the biggest tournaments, you might struggle just firepower-wise, having both these guys here. Even with Rain's recent pickup in performance, I'm not sure if it would have sustained. And then you're relying pretty heavily on these other guys. The other thing I will say, okay, is that I do think you could keep Rain and Carrigan on the team. But what you would need is a very, very good AWPer. And genuinely, okay, let me read you this roster, right? Let me read you this roster. Imagine this. Frozen, Twists, Simple, Rain and Carrigan. Dude, I think that would work, man. I think that would work if they just had Simple still. Because then, I think your big three there have enough firepower that you can stop them and having Rain and Carrigan, right? If Carrigan is really struggling, and if Rain is just doing what he does as a soldier and maybe sometimes having some off periods, I think those three could carry you through. I really do. And it makes me kind of sad. But I've also got to add, okay, as we look at where Rain can go next, I'm seeing a lot of people say BC game, right? And yeah, in theory, it makes sense. Because let's look at the rest of the teams, right? So Mal's here at the top. This is weirdly a spot that, like, it could kind of make sense for him to go to. If he's going to become an in-game leader, and we're not really massively backing Brolan, and to be honest, Exertion is probably the player I look at on this team where I think in big moments he struggles. Could you bring Rain back and he could do some aggressive rifling and he could step up in big games where Mal's struggle and he could help them there? I kind of wouldn't hate it, but also it just doesn't feel like a Mal's move at all, right? Like, Mal's are just this new school gen of guys. Like, I kind of just can't imagine them going for Rain. It just almost doesn't seem like it works in my head, but like on paper, it looks like it could work. I honestly wouldn't hate it. But then you look down the rest of the rosters. G2, they're not moving soon. Falcons, you never know with Falcons. It doesn't feel like they should be moving soon, but I couldn't rule out them deciding to pick up Rain for TSS because Rain is a massive name. It's not impossible. Don't know if I'd like to see him go to Falcons, though, to be honest with you. Don't know if I'd love that. Then you go down the list. Astralis, I would like to see them go international, but it doesn't seem like they're going to. Liquid, we know, have just made their move. And then the problem you have is, outside of these sorts of teams, look at the next teams we're getting to on the rankings, guys. Gamer Legion, Heroic. I look at these rosters. I don't want to see Rain here. Right? And I don't think they have the money. Like, Gamer Legion definitely don't. Heroic probably don't. I don't think they've got the money to pay Rain, right? And the main issue is, it's a couple of these teams like NIP and Fnatic that in theory should be a bit better than they are, that you would want to see Rain go to. But I don't think anyone believes in these teams right now. I think it could work, though. I think it could work okay. If you look at NIP, I don't know if I'd get him in for Snappy, but I think he could come in for someone like you, Jerks. And I don't think I'd hate it. I actually think this team is kind of decent. But again, it kind of feels like it should be below Rain's level, right? And again, with Fnatic, could he come in for, like, Fear? Maybe, but then you've got Rain and Crims on the same team, and aren't you running into a similar problem? Could he come in for Cypher again? Maybe. I don't think Crims fully works roles-wise. Maybe it could. I don't know. If he wants to try out in-game leading, though, I honestly think this could be the team for that. Because in theory, with Blame F and Jambo there, like, I don't hate it, right? And it's not like Fear has been putting up crazy numbers himself. But then you look at the rest of these teams, there's none of them you really want to see him go to. So, yeah, you end up going down to BC Game. But, like, look at how low ranked these guys are. They're pretty far off where they need to be. Currently, I think it's Nexa that's in-game leading. He's probably one of the pieces you'd want to keep, right? And the other thing is, I think Rain probably ends up waiting until after the major at this point, right? That seems likely. I think if you do that, then you've got to be very careful. And I think the reason he definitely should wait out is because I don't know how accurate this report is, because it got posted on Reddit, and I'm just going to go with it, okay? We're just going to assume. But this is not an article. This is like 3 sentences. Like, I feel like I could have wrote this and made my own site and just wrote this. But basically, they're saying that Simple has the highest salary in the world at 130 grand a month, compared to ZywOo at 100 grand a month, which I could believe. Apparently, he costs 500k. And apparently, this is the main one. His contract with BC Game is short-term until the end of 2025. Okay, if you're Rain, I don't think you sign with BC Game right now until you know for a fact that Simple is staying. Because to me, BC Game have made no moves, no ambitious moves. Maybe they're waiting for a roster mania at the end of the season, sure. But it would not surprise me if Simple looks at this contract and he gets to the end of it and he says, you know what? There are teams out there that want a good AWPer, and I've proven myself. Because you better believe, if Simple just ran out this contract, he would have teams desperate to get him, right? I think there's a lot of teams that would be very interested because he has very much proven himself. So I think the main thing is Rain should not rush into this BC Game move. Because the last thing I would want is for him to get stuck with this team and a Simple that's gone. That would suck. Even if they do have the big money, I would wait and see that Simple's staying and that you can guarantee that they're going to continue to make moves in the right direction, which it seems like it might happen, right? It might be another Falcons situation. But I think we've got to wait to see that. The other thing I do want to add on FaZe, by the way, is talking about the Carrigan angle, which I may be leaving a little late to talk about. But I think the issue is, as I said earlier, you want to keep Carrigan to be able to coach into the future. But also, his numbers are bad. But if you looked at his recent article Nero did, basically, this is a list of the players who get the most impact with the frags they get. And Carrigan is one of the highest impact players with the kills he gets. I'm not saying that means that his stats are excusable. Like, they are very bad. But he normally has impact kills. That's what this graph is saying. It's saying these are the guys that the kills they get are the most impactful, even if he's getting way fewer kills than he should. But the other thing is, he still has those moments in big games where he has a couple of big matches. If you look at his match history, it's mostly really bad. But then here against G2, for example, at London, he had this map of Dust 2 where he actually got some kills and he looked pretty good, right? I think it was Dust, was it? Yeah, it was the Dust map where he was actually top of the team, right? And again, it's in the big arena games that it seems to happen. And again, it's Jacob who was struggling in the big arena game, which is kind of awkward. Because it feels like if you're FaZe, you want to milk the most out of these guys while you can, but I don't think Jacob's there yet. So that's why I think the Carrigan stuff is going a bit overboard. I think if you're FaZe, Carrigan is kind of your guy until he retires, unless it gets really, really bad, because you know you want him to be your coach. And I still believe he can turn this round. I actually do, okay? Twist will come in. They'll be a looser looking team. And I think that can fit Twist very well. I just think you need to surround Karrigan with incredible fragging. And I don't think that's impossible to do, but I don't think FaZe have done it. And I think keeping Rain could have been a part of that. I do. And keeping Simple could have been a part of that. As I was saying earlier with that roster I was talking about. But overall, I just want to say, Rain, switching to IGL as the final thing here. It's weird because I've said so many good things about Rain and how smart he was as a player and how smart he has been as a player. And yet, I don't know if I believe in Rain as an IGL. And clearly, FaZe kind of feel the same. And I think that's because he always seemed like such a chill guy, almost stoic sort of vibes, but not in a sense that he's going to be a leader. He seems like a thinking player, but quite to himself almost. And I don't think that's the sort of player that always transitions the best to being an in-game leader. I just get the feeling he's someone who's always thinking and feeling what he can do in the game very well. But I've never really got the feeling he's working super well and thinking super well for the overall team side of things, if that makes sense. Like Hunter, I don't know why. I get the vibe with him that he was a little more involved in everything the team was doing throughout the entirety of his teams. And he was quite vocal all the time. I just don't quite get that vibe with Rain. And even though I'm sure he's smart enough for it, and he's still, I think, good enough as a player for it, I just get the vibe that I think he'd maybe struggle sometimes to always communicate fully. I think he'd be so focused on thinking about everything that maybe he'd be a little slow to communicate. And I think maybe that would hold him back a bit. The other thing is, I kind of wonder whether he could be one of these guys where when he's got a good read for what's going on, he could be really good. But a big part of being an in-game leader is when you're struggling, knowing how to deal with that, right? And so I think he'd need some experienced players or some voices alongside him to help. But my gut instinct is I don't know if I fully believe in the Rain IGL ship. But whatever the case, Rain clearly such a legend of FaZe. Sad to see him go, really am. But I understand to some extent why they felt they had to do this. I still think he could have stayed. I know it would have been harsh to get rid of Jacob, but I don't see it. But maybe FaZe knows something I don't. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Give Rain the love he deserves. And I'll catch you next time.